In early 1952, the petition by the Catholic Mothers for a new parish in Chicago's Edgebrook neighborhood had been accepted, yet it wasn't until June 29th that Cardinal Samuel Stritch appointed Father Daniel O'Rourke as pastor of the unnamed parish.
As a founding pastor, I guess you have to be chief cook and bottle washer. He ran just about everything. It was his show.
Born in Chicago in 1906, Father O'Rourke was a bona fide Southsider, having grown up in what is today known as the Auburn neighborhood of the city. He was ordained by Cardinal Mundelein in 1931 and served at 4 parishes in the subsequent 20 years, including St. Agatha's in Chicago and St. Odillo's in Berwyn. His appointment to a new parish on Chicago's far northwest side was no doubt a change for this Southside Irish priest.
I'm a lifer. I've been here since my parents moved here when I think I was 1 or 2 years old. When I arrived, Monsignor O'Rourke was the pastor, and I knew him, fairly well.
By July of 1952, Masses were celebrated at a storefront on Touhy Avenue while construction was underway on a field located a quarter-mile south. The school opened 1 year later, in September of 1953, and the Masses were finally held on the current St. Mary's property before the end of the year. As the 1950s carried on, the parish grew in size so that by the early 1960s, the school was enlarged with new classrooms.
Monsignor O'Rourke was, very capable. Most people really liked him, and we got a lot done. The parish moved forward.
In December 1963, the Vatican elevated St. Mary of the Woods' founding pastor to the rank of domestic prelate, along with the title Monsignor, an honor that would come just before his biggest contribution to the parish, the expansion of the church. Construction began in 1964, creating the St. Mary of the Woods Church as we know it today, moving the direction of the congregation by 90 degrees, the floor-to-ceiling forest windows with various depictions of the Blessed Mother, the installation of the stone altar, and replacing the Stations of the Cross with the mosaic.
He was a good man. He did the best he could as he knew how. Today's parlance, we'd consider him old school because he selected people for various roles in the parish: holy name, altar and rosary, the altar servers, things of this sort. Everything had to go through him. And when he retired, by that time, when he turned 70, he had to retire. It was an archdiocesan requirement.
In January 1977, Monsignor O'Rourke became pastor emeritus and would live out his remaining years in the North Side neighborhood he grew to love. He entered into eternal life on July 6, 1985.
Then Father McDonough arrived, and he was our pastor.
When Father Andrew McDonough came, after Monsignor retired, it was a lot of things opened up a little bit more. The laity became the church that it should be, in the sense of more things going on here.
Ordained in 1942, Father McDonough worked at a bevy of different parishes, specifically engaging with various ministries. By the mid-1960s, Father McDonough's experience as a counselor elevated him to becoming a member of the Archdiocesan Committee on Alcoholism and Addiction. In late 1968, Father McDonough was appointed pastor of St. Nicholas in Evanston, where he served for 8 years until 1977, when he was appointed pastor of St. Mary of the Woods.
Father Andy McDonough, who had been a pastor previous before coming in here, and was also had a lot of experience in counseling, pastoral counseling. He had a degree in it and working with priests. So it turned out to be a good move in that sense.
Father McDonough really saved a lot of priests. He was very active in, which many people don't know, alcohol and drug abuse, dealing with pastors, and he had the ultimate authority in terms of trying to get them to turn their lives around a little bit. So he really accomplished some great things. And on a personal nature, he helped my family with a couple situations also, but he really accomplished a lot for the parish.
Bible study came in under Father McDonough, as I recall, and Father McDonough and his successor, Father Leo Mann, really brought the post-Vatican II era to St. Mary of the Woods. A lot of lay involvement was initiated under both of them, and instead of being asked to do something and considering it like the Ten Commandments, they might let you consider, and they'd play up to your strengths. They'd get to know you, they play up to their strengths. And I think there was a blossoming of parish involvement, of the parishioners involved.
It was very important for Father McDonough and also for Monsignor Leo Mann to make sure that we had a very active school board, very active parish council, to have something for almost every age group within the parish. It's just that the church was opening up more to the laity in general.
When Father McDonough retired, Father Leo Mann came in.
Father Mann was was an excellent pastor and very good to my parents and our family, and did a great job. He had a very interesting background as a priest as well.
Ordained in 1951, Father Mann ironically celebrated his first Mass at the same church where Father O'Rourke was appointed as curate. Father Mann spent the first decade of his priesthood primarily serving the Hispanic community in and throughout the Archdiocese of Chicago. However, one of the most consequential aspects of Father Mann's biography began in 1963, when Cardinal Albert Meyer commissioned him to direct a small group of Chicago priests to begin an experimental parish in San Miguelito, Panama.
We did go on a trip with Father Mann to Panama, and that was the trip of a lifetime. When he was down there, he was truly a missionary to the poor and the marginalized of Panama. But he was so charismatic that the kind of the social justice wealthy people of Panama were attracted to Father Mann. So when we went down there, we stayed and met some of these powerful, wealthy, beautiful people. But things that they did to help the poor were incredible. They just didn't hoard their food. They spent it there. And we one Sunday went to the church where Father Mann was missioned. And they knew we were coming. He was going to say Mass, and it was up on a hill, and you took a windy corkscrew road to get up there. And as we pulled up, there was a person at the bottom, and he yelled up, "Padre Leo!" And when we got up, they just swarmed the car. It was just swarming. And he went into the church, and the place erupted into applause. And at the sign of peace, people ran up to the altar, and women were crawling across the altar on their knees, and they would take the hem of his alb and kiss it. Father Mann's host said, he goes, if there was 3 people in the square in the center of Panama, the president, the cardinal, and Father Leo, he goes, everyone would be with Father Leo. No one would be with the president or the cardinal.
For 13 years, Father Mann was a missionary in Panama and chronicled his harrowing journey in the book Fire Under My Feet. In 1975, Father Mann was appointed pastor of the now closed St. Victor Parish in Calumet City, where he served until his appointment to St. Mary of the Woods in 1988.
Leo was, I liked it a lot. He was funny. He was really a gifted biblical scholar, which he didn't, was very shy about presenting really what his gifts were in terms of, he would give things, and he really activated. We used to have an annual Holy Name retreat, and it was an overnight retreat at the former rectory, which was, had a lot of empty space, obviously, nowadays. And, it was an overnight thing, and it really was a great thing spiritually for the parish itself. He also was very involved with, the school and making sure that was strong and adding things. And he did the building campaign that brought in the gym and the school expansions, things like that. So a lot of things with the idea towards the future, because if you don't grow, you're not going anywhere,
And under Father Leo Mann, he was extremely outgoing, and he would have been a wonderful retreat master, because he began small groups, what were known as the Beloved Retreat. And the rectory used to be where the gym is now. And after Monsignor died and Father McDonough the nuns moved out of the convent, they repurposed the convent as the rectory, and so they moved out of that house. And so Father Leo used that house for his beloved retreats, and they used it as a conference center and things of this sort. In order to attract people, the school needed to expand a little bit. And one of the things that we really needed, we did have a gym, but it really wasn't all that much to write home about. And Father Leo, I guess the parish was saying, can we do something about this? And so what they did after a survey, and Father Leo around 1990, the plans were drawn up for the gym that we have now, a high school level gym, a separate wing for the junior high kids, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and expanding to preschool. All of these were things that would attract more and more families. It became a very family-oriented parish. And I think more so under Father Leo, as I recall, and under Father Andy. It was starting under Father Andy, but Father Leo really pushed it.
Father Mann was also a great patron of the arts, and he loved classical music. He loved all his Irishness. He went to Father Mann and I went to Ireland together with our family, and just he and I we were there 15 times. And he loved the golf. And he actually would bring Irish entertainers like Frank Patterson, who in the Irish community was well known as maybe one of the best tenors ever. And he would bring him in here for concerts. And they'd have a nice dinner in the rectory and have concerts and fill the church up. He also replaced the organ. He said, this organ needs updating. So, he really, was pastoral in so many different ways. He was a lift to the parish. It was really, he enlivened the place. He brought life to it.
He was a priest for all people too, because he was very, very friendly to the elderly and the older people that were in the church at the time. He knew them. Of course, he knew everyone by name, but he paid special attention to them. But then he would also visit and I think all the other priests did as well, but he would visit the classrooms and the children. And so we're fortunate with the priests we have had, very fortunate and blessed.
Fern said he knew everybody's name, but the way he did it is he put together a parish directory with photographs of everyone in there. And he would sit there and study the faces and the names. And if he saw somebody and didn't get it, he'd go find their face, their picture in the book. So the next time he'd go, hi Marla, how are you?
In 2010, Pope Benedict XVI granted Father Mann the domestic prelate title, the same as Monsignor O'Rourke, thereby elevating Father Mann to Monsignor Mann. Monsignor Mann would also become Pastor Emeritus of St. Mary of the Woods and would enter into eternal life on May 20th, 2013.
At the time that Father Mann was retiring from the parish, our assistant was Father Greg, and I think we had a couple of retired priests here in the parish.
Mm-hmm. And then Greg came on as an associate in 92 and became pastor in 97. And he was also a very fine person to work with.
And I believe the next pastor after that was Father Greg Sakowitz, who was here kind of during more of my personal, during my high school years. And we started doing open gyms on Saturday nights in the gym, because we just got the gym when I was going into 8th grade, 1992, 1993. And he would come out and play basketball with us. And, he was a younger guy at that time, so he had a lot of energy and was very involved in a lot of things that were going on in the parish.
Father Greg Sakowitz, first he was head of communications for the Archdiocese, but I mean, if he saw you once, he knew your name, and then in a little bit he had a backstory for you. He knew some of the people you knew, and he always just was really friendly and engaging, and did a lot again to help the parish grow and become more appealing to more people in terms of attending Mass and school participation, things like that.
Then Father Pat came aboard, and Father Pat was a very, very nice man as well.
Born June 21st, 1952, Father Pat grew up in Niles in St. John Brebeuf Parish. Ordained into the priesthood in 1978, Father Pat served as associate pastor at a couple parishes in the Archdiocese, until appointed pastor of St. Patrick in Wadsworth, Illinois in 1996. In 2010, Father Pat was appointed pastor of St. Mary of the Woods, including being named Dean of Vicariate II, the vicariate where St. Mary of the Woods is located.
Father Cecil, who was here for a couple years, was a very nice man, unfortunately fell ill and passed a few years ago.
Father Cecil came in, and it's hard to judge Father Cecil. I think he didn't come in the best of health, and Father Sakowicz was a hard person to follow in terms of Father Sakowicz knew everybody and names, and he was really ex pro tempore speaker right off the cuff, and that they were not the gifts that Father Cecil had. And I felt guilty myself that I didn't get to know Father Cecil better.
In an interview, Father Pat said that he lived by the motto, "The work of a priest is to point out the movement of God in people's lives." He entered into eternal life 2016.
He was wonderful, and then Father Pat got very ill and actually died in the nursing home when he was still pastor. So Father Aiden became the administrator, pastoral administrator.
And Father Aiden O'Boyle took over at that point as the parish administrator. And really, Father Aiden brought a lot to our parish and brought a lot to the community and did a ton of great work, not only for the parish, but for the school as well, getting us back to where we're at right now. And Father Ray Cleese came back, who was also a priest here back in the 80s, and came back and really was instrumental in helping Father Aiden do a lot of things he was able to accomplish.
He was really good in terms of kind of revitalizing the parish in terms of we weren't going in quite the direction that we really wanted to go. And that included, fundraising and things on that order and enrollments. And he stopped the bleeding and also turned it around to where we weren't, we were back in the black again and moving forward. And, he was here really on an assignment, and it was always extended for a few years, but he was not incorporated in the Archdiocese. He was just too incorporated in a diocese in Ireland, and eventually the bishop there wanted him back, so he left.
And now we have a great pastor right now, Father Rich Jakubik, who is doing an excellent job and really is a good man, a nice man, and has been really, we're lucky to have him at St. Mary of the Woods.
We really got lucky then after a little great period with Father Rich coming in, because here again is someone who's relating and willing to try new things in different ways and just shake it up a little bit. Because one of the things everybody tends to do, well, if it's working, let's not fix it. But sometimes, well, it's working at a certain level. It can always be better. What can we do to improve the situation? And Father Rich seems very open to do that. And we've really been, I think, lucky, because it's too much work for one man, that Father Gudeme has come in. And Father Gudeme, has been, I think, really good in terms of going above and beyond anything he's been asked to do. And, he does a lot on YouTube in terms of, reflections on spiritual thoughts, things like that. And so, in terms of the pastors and the religious, I think we're doing very well.
We're so happy that Father Rich is with us, and Grace, of course, the dog of St. Mary of the Woods. And for us, it's always been important for Rich and I to get to know our pastors a little bit and not just say hello to them after Mass. So we're very proud of that too. So we've had a nice string of pastors and associates.